Hi, I'm John Masters. I'm Executive Director of Grassroots Community Television. And this is the second part of a series of God knows how many we're going to be doing of these with Fred Mauney, also known as the Phoenix. And we found out last time, hopefully you saw last time, so you have some background on this. If you didn't, I'm going to try to do a recap real quick here. But we found out that Fred's called the Phoenix because he, really keeps coming back, especially in his legal adventures. Fred does his homework, and he's acted as a paralegal in different situations and in complex cases. And what we've got here is a very complex case, and it starts off very simply, but it starts getting more complicated. And I'm trying to lead you, the audience, through Fred's story. Fred's got a bunch of folders here. He's got all his documentation, letters from the government, and articles, and the research, legal research he's done on his case, and what we've come up with. Well, let's start at the beginning real quick, and it started off with Fred on his way to work with another fellow who was working in a nearby site, and they come upon a murder scene on the freeway in outside Salt Lake City. And Fred has a history of being a good Samaritan and stopping and helping people and treating strangers as friends. And so he convinced the driver of the car or the truck to see what was going on here. It was an odd situation. And as they came up to it, they realized that someone had been shot, and they started to get away from it, and the murderer chased them and actually shot at their vehicle, and but they managed to escape and go call 911. They got the Utah State Police, I believe, or Salt Lake City Police. Highway Patrol. And they got to the scene. Fred was handcuffed and questioned as though he was not just a witness, but a suspect. And as it turned out, a man was murdered, just a regular, good guy, family man, lived in Sandy, Utah, and he was he worked in the post office, some sort of management position, I believe.
Supervisor. Yeah.
Supervisor in the post office. Fred helped with the conviction of the murderer, who was had stolen a couple of cars, and at any rate, it was a cold-blooded, there was no reason for the murder, anyway, the murderer was convicted thanks to Fred's help, and first of all calling the police in the first place, and then help throughout the case. As it turns out, there is a reward for anyone who helps in the conviction, the arrest and conviction of anyone who actually assaults a postal worker, or there's a whole list of different things, but especially in a case of murder. And that reward is $100,000. So Fred, went to see if this applied, and the Inspector General of the Postal Service in Salt Lake City said yes, it does. You deserve the reward. And then as time goes on here, and I'm going to be very quick, and it's very complicated, and Fred keeps trying to see if try to get his reward. And it turns out some inspector generals in the post office say yes, absolutely, of course you get it. Some say no, absolutely not, you don't get it. In legal help, he has asked or gone to for advice, and this includes professors in law schools. They said, no, obviously you do get it. The point of contention is that the reward says the postal employee has been murdered on account of his job, and Mr. Parker, who was murdered, was on his way to work. So some people, especially consider the labor unions, certainly look at the point that that was on account of his work, that he was on the way to work on account of his work, therefore it covers. There's a lot of other federal employees, particularly police and guards, that have the same sort of protection. That anyone who helps in the murder of a federal employee in one of these positions on account of their job, they also receive a reward. So this isn't just about Fred and the murder of Mr. Parker. It has implications for all federal employees that are covered by such a reward. Fred went to after the Postal Service denied him this reward, and this is through the
Postal Inspector.
The Postal Inspector, Postal Inspection Service. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And the United States Postal Inspection Service is the one who's responsible for making that decision as on a policy level.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Fred says, "Well, no, I don't think that's right," and so he went to court. And so when he went to court, and in this situation, the Justice Department is responsible for taking over that case. The post office cannot try this case, be involved in the trial of this case, because, of course, it would be a conflict of interest. So that's why there are federal rules that say that the Justice Department takes over cases that involve federal agencies.
Yeah, departments.
Now, as this goes to federal court, and the Attorney General may hire a special prosecutor, a special attorney,
yeah,
and so which they do, and to try this case, and so later on, Fred doesn't realize at first that the special prosecutor, the special attorney that the Attorney General has hired to try Fred's case, works for the postal
legal department and
the legal department in the post office, which is the whole. So now it's become a situation where, well, the whole idea is that the Justice Department tries this case, so there's no conflict of interest, and they go out and hire someone who has a conflict of interest to try the case.
Yeah.
It's exactly
not even just the appearance. This is definitely a conflict.
Yeah. So there's no right. Fred's saying it isn't just an appearance of a conflict of interest. It is obviously a conflict of interest, and indeed the conflict of interest that the law attempted to eliminate. Okay, so now we sort of ended up with we had one chart here that was sort of about the Justice Department versus the U.S. Postal Service Legal Department, and how they kind of work together to really deny you due process. It's the appearance here. So we end up with, now first of all, the case is dismissed because Fred is caught at 9/11 without on his bicycle. You might remember Fred riding around with his bicycle with the American flag on it and his ride across America. And Fred can't get to court, and he was representing himself. So the case was dismissed, but Fred, on a default, can go back and reopen the case, have the case reopened. Meanwhile, he's gone and talked to other inspector generals back in Washington,
So, while I was
in D.C., and that inspector general says, no, you should get this reward. This is what
the people working under the inspector general.
Okay,
their
people working
staff.
under. Okay, his staff said, no, this is the intent of this reward was to protect postal employees by making sure that anyone who would want to murder them realizes that there will be people out attempting to find them and convict them because there's a reward involved. So Fred gets back on the track of the post office and the inspector general, and he also contacts his
Representative of North
representative from North Carolina, Sue Myrick, who's in Fred's home district.
Yes.
So there are some letters back and forth between Congresswoman Myrick and the post office, which, to me, I've got them here, is the Postal Service is trying to obviously the Inspector General, which works for the United States Congress, says, well, this really isn't our problem, although they routinely review charges of fraud, waste, and misconduct in the United States Postal Service. And Fred, at this point, is bringing up the fact
there's fraud.
That there's fraud involved here because
we didn't know at the time misconduct because we didn't know that the attorney was a postal.
Okay,
attorney.
let's start off here. We're sort of at the end of where we were last time. Why is there fraud involved?
Well, the fraud is the reward is a contract. It's a promise. And for them not to do it, it constitutes a fraud under the definition of fraud.
Okay, so, but they are arguing...
They're misrepresenting.
Okay, so they're arguing that there is no fraud because the reward does not apply to this situation. So now that is... Okay, either there is no fraud and there is no misrepresentation, or there is misrepresentation and there is fraud.
Right.
Depending on how you define on account of.
Well, these people work for us. Everybody, they're employed. Yes. And they swore an oath as officers.
Yes.
So that makes it a little stronger. And anything that has to do with the government, if it's ambiguity, like they're trying to say this is or whatever, then it's supposed to go to the citizen.
Okay, so now the point here is that on account of, the law doesn't, or the reward doesn't say that they're on the job. It says on account of the job. Now, why would you put, if you meant they had to be on the job, then why didn't it say on the job? Okay, it says on account of their job. So it's ambiguous.
The government doesn't care about the postal worker. They want the mail delivered.
Yes.
That's the premise, you know.
Yes.
So to get the mail delivered, they've got to have the people to do it.
Yes.
So if they can't get to work, then they're not going to deliver the mail. So on account of the job was in the process of getting to work, because the mail didn't get delivered or whatever service he did that day, they had to get somebody else.
And obviously this is a very good argument. I mean, logically it's a very good argument. And also, but I think probably some people could see, well, maybe the other side, there's some legitimacy to the logic of the other side's argument, which is to be on account of his job, it means it had to be related to him doing his duty.
Like sticking a letter in the mailbox.
Yes, like being on the job. So, but at best, it's ambiguous.
Yes. Till you start looking up on account of.
Yes. Now we looked up on account of, and Fred's done some research on account of, and there's very little case history on account of. There's a large amount of case history on because of,
which account of derives from.
And however, in the definition, the legal definition of on account of, it means because of.
Yes.
Okay, and so if you go into because of, there's a wealth of case history on that, which and several that directly apply to a situation like this. So it seems like to some guy is a total amateur at the law, but to someone who has spent a lot of time as a paralegal, and to many other people who are legal scholars, that on account of on your way to work, being on your way to work is on account of your job.
And there's no reason that they don't know that.
And there's no reason, right? And so what they're trying to do is to avoid paying $100,000 is what it seems like.
Yes.
I mean, that's the only thing you can come up with, is that all these people...
And nobody understood it because it would look so good for them to have came out
and reward, give a reward.
And been in the paper all over the country, and everybody would know that there was a reward and stuff.
Yes,
and
and
things.
instead of publicizing the fact that there's a reward to protect postal employees, they're trying to avoid that. I mean, it's worth the $100,000 worth of publicity.
Yeah.
It would seem like.
Oh, got in the paper everywhere.
Yeah, okay. So...
for them.
Okay, so you start wondering why they would not want to give you the reward, and why they'd start really digging their heels in on this. And it seems like it's more of a case of, well, they're just covering each other's butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also you sort of have this problem where you got a postal employee who was actually prosecuting the case, which is not supposed to be happening. And you sort of have this potential fraud situation and misrepresentation situation, and now you've got them kind of doing a sleight of hand with the congresswoman.
Yeah, well, now you're getting into even more criminality.
Okay.
And they're documenting it. It's like the tar baby. They're getting more stuck into it, and I'm not going to throw them into the briar patch. You know.
Okay, so now the latest we have from this is the Postal Inspection Service saying to the congresswoman, basically, yeah, we know about Fred. We've told him before that thank you very much for helping us solve the case of the murder of the postal employee, but you don't get the reward. You're not eligible for the reward. And end of story.
And one reason I kept also pushing, not only from the professors, I can read English and stuff, but at the time I knew some other postal letter carriers from where I was hanging around, and I was talking about it, and they thought it'd be good. That's what it was for, to get the reward. They didn't see anything as far as the actual union member letter carrier. And so when it came out afterwards, I told one of them I knew pretty good, because of my thing was, like we talked, I said, gosh almighty, I mean, to me, the Postal Service was the thin blue line, because they're out there in your neighborhood seeing if there's a fire or something. When everybody used to know each other, Postal letter knew everybody's business just from the mail you got.
Yes.
And he'd bring you little toys or something, or whatever, the Sears catalog and stuff. And I said, then when I was in Pop Warner football, the letter carriers were picked me up and took me when I didn't have a way. They came by the house on the way, and it was my coach for the backfield coach, and another one was the line coach. And then when I was in Boy Scouts and getting my merit badges in first aid and life-saving things, my scoutmaster was a letter carrier. And one of the councilmen who first got me into landscaping and painting, he did it on the side. He used to do it full-time. He liked the insurances and stuff from the letter carrier. And when he saw I was a worker, he said, I can help you some, because he knew a neighborhood that needed some workers. So, I mean, I was just that day when I found out it was a letter carrier, I thought the ironicness of it. But it made me feel good that at least I tried. And it was a letter carrier, because of past things, And,
I think something needs to be clear is that Fred came upon this murder scene, and in fact was shot at. I mean, the murderer was trying to kill him, and he went and dealt with a murder scene. A lot of people in this country today would just have driven away. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to do anything. He had no idea this guy worked for the post office. He had no idea there was a reward involved. You were doing the right thing here.
It could have been you.
Yeah, it could have been. Yes. And so, you weren't ambulance chasing here trying to get a reward. So we got to kind of make that clear. And actually, you went out of your way and spent a lot of your own personal time making sure that this.
So this, which I haven't said much about,
yes,
because I keep letting them like the tar baby, sticking herself in it. But the letter carrier didn't like it. And what I have to say
that you told the story.
It kind of gets into this Mormon, non-Mormon thing. This letter carrier is a non-Mormon. And what we were saying, well, where were the Mormons helping? They're talking about how Christian they are and things like
He's
that.
non-Mormon.
This letter carrier was not Mormon.
Yes,
the one who
in
was
Utah.
killed was Mormon.
Yes, yes.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
why aren't the Mormons standing up for a Mormon and things like that? And from talking to people, well, they think that everything that belongs to them, the federal government doesn't count. And unless the church was getting this 10%, they were going to stop me from getting the reward. Now, these are people who are Mormons and Jack Mormons and things. Tell me, we'll just let you know what's going on, Freddie. Where the resistance is coming from their politics, who they've got elected to office and things and stuff. And so, but the part of it was, what still hasn't been brought out, but this letter carrier is telling me, he said, Freddie, you go ahead and do a lawsuit because it's going to come. I'm going to let you know this is a question you want to ask. Because they have benefits, like if you were on the job, or perks compared to your life insurance payoff and things like that. There's things you get that's extra if you're actually killed on what they consider the job versus if you was at home cutting your grass or out taking vacation.
This is postal employees?
Yeah, postal employees with the whole thing that have of your insurance packages, you know.
Okay.
And I guess it's like if you got killed, you have a $100,000 policy. If you get killed off a train, they pay $300,000. Mm-hmm. You see, it's one of those type of things. So that's what they refer to it different ways as perks or extras, you know, and things like that. And he said I know that they paid the wife the extra things in the family, or that the family would have got, the extra things as if he's on the job. So they can't have it both ways. This is where all this is coming from. So they know if it gets into the courtroom, you understand what I'm saying? And I was already telling the inspectors, they got it in their notes, the inspector general, and then they're saying, oh, now we're going to have to convict these people because the evidence is really there. They paid the wife as if he was on the job from the insurance policies under their rules and policies and everything else. Not no ambiguity of the reward, as they were trying to say. You see what I'm saying? This still hasn't came out yet. And this is where even more of this is. And then since I did research the law, that they're looking at treason. This is an act of sedition. They're taking the offices of the government and doing their own thing.
I mean,
so I'm just saying they're scared now.
You throw out something like treason.
Well, that's what it is.
Or act of sedition.
That's what it is.
Now, what is?
What they're doing here.
How is it act of treason?
Well, this is undermining the authority and integrity of the government, the power of this is a third of the branch of government, the court system.
Yes.
And by all this, what's going on over here, and then they're using the mails. They're breaking the law. This is mail fraud, wire fraud. When they sent letters that anything that ties to it. Study anything about criminal law. There's a lot of people in federal penitentiary for just having something to do with it. Conspiracy. If it's 20 people involved and you're just one person in that 20, you're just as guilty as the whole thing. I'm just saying under the conspiracy and fraud. So they know this.
Okay.
They already know this, and they know this is where it's heading. And so they're, like you said, they're trying to protect each other because when this first letter got back, he was a deputy director. Yes. So these other people that you get these other letters from,
yes.
There's a guy that's already their boss. They got to arrest him. You see what I mean? So now it's getting into cover butt. And it's getting
so
now they've took this corruption.
Is gray area, but there's so much gray area now.
Well, it's not even gray area. It's locked in. This stuff, some of this stuff's locked in granite. It ain't no in the sand stuff. This is the sword and the granite, you know, and especially when it gets over here to the lawsuit part. This is even more outrageous. It just gets even more, you know. They act like they're a fascist government, Gestapo government operating inside our government.
Okay, now I tend to agree with you on that. It seems like, and a lot of what Fred's point is that we the people, this is a government, this is our government.
Yeah.
We're in charge. They work for us. We get the benefit of the doubt.
It's not even their money.
It's not even their
it's not even their money. Unless they did something under the table. We don't know yet whether they actually paid somebody and put the money in their pocket. Because everybody's saying something's going on here.
Well,
but we haven't got to that point.
This is what
it raises the question.
It's looking like we're raising the question of why does it seem like, yes, Fred, you get it. Yes, it seems to make sense. The legal scholars say, yeah, of course you get it. They paid off. Now we find out they paid off the insurance under basically the same concept. Was he at work or not? Okay, but it seems like you get a bunch of green lights, and all of a sudden there's a red light, and all the green lights turn red again.
Yeah.
And so there's something going on. Okay. So that's kind of where we are now. We've spent quite a bit of time recapping.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
Well, the part of which gets into two things is all of a sudden with this investigation, and I've done some other ones that we'll get into the other that
Yes.
hadn't come out there. You've seen.
Yes.
We'll bring them up in the next time.
There's
But
a
there's
whole
a
bunch of
common-
layers to this, and it's going to take several hours actually to get through all these layers. And this thing keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and
There's
more fascinating. Actually,
The common denominator over here on the postal system
yes,
is Orrin Hatch. Because as I was talking to people, what is going on? I mean, even though whatever it is, Mormons are or not, and I didn't want to have no problem with them, didn't look for no problem. And it was kind of outrageous that, I mean, the family didn't even look us up and say, thank you for trying to help our father that night. I'm from the South, and whether it was Baptist or Catholic or Jewish or anything, everybody would, or some friend would go because they're just in so much mourning. You know what I mean? Just say, we want to thank you, and we'll
you never
remember
got thanks
like
from
that.
the family.
Never. Nothing from the family, a child, or nothing. But the
And
wife.
you were, I mean, Fred's name is in the newspaper articles, in the summation of the trial, in all this. I mean, Fred was a major part of this investigation.
And I've tried to keep away from the religion side, but the religion side of people there telling me is part of the
Let's face it,
the character of what goes on.
the Mormon Church is an element, a very important element of Utah society and the way the Utah government and the way things work there. There's no doubt about that. And when you interface with the church, it operates differently than our civil democratic society. We think it operates anyway.
And it's like they operate on 2 or 3 or 4 different levels. They try to say that the level doesn't exist. And I'm telling them that this picture that's being painted is being brushed with your own hand. I'm not the one actually painting the picture here. Every bit of it. And there's there's a lot, even with the Mormons' dissatisfaction with how things are done out there.
Yes.
And stuff from the top. And that's how I got a lot of information at times and stuff, or to help, or to let me know what was going on. But now it's gone over into the Justice Department. Well, the Postal Inspector and the Inspector General and all that, look, the CIA couldn't tell nobody that was having a terrorist attack. The Postal System and Justice Department don't even interact at all. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So why is it all of a sudden there's this big interaction between the Justice Department and the Postal Service when they couldn't even tell us about a terrorist attack? I mean, our government, under their, whatever it is they
There's
come
so
up
much
with.
separation between these different agencies.
Competition and things.
Right, and
track
particularly
turf.
between the Postal Service and the Justice Department.
Nothing.
They're two completely different animals.
I mean, the FBI and the SEC don't even cooperate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they're both enforcement agencies.
And it seems like there's some collusion here.
Well, there's got to, so I said, yeah. But who has the power to cross these borders, to force it? And the only name that keeps coming up is Orrin Hatch.
The senator from Utah.
Yeah, on the judiciary.
And
Justice Department. Judiciary, Justice Department are closely related.
Okay, and he was the chair of the Judiciary Committee before the Democrats won the Senate. Okay.
Yes, during this period of time.
Yes, during this period of time. Okay.
So then if we come over to this one, of what's just been coming, this is what's held up's doing. We were watching when this U.S. Attorney thing came out. Because now it's showing where people's almost hard to believe that the Justice Department would be in this, going this far.
Okay, now what we're referring to is the U.S. attorneys that were fired by Gonzales.
Well,
Gonzales.
Gonzales.
Under Gonzales. By Kyle Sampson, actually, did the firing, right?
So, yeah.
Okay, and how did the Justice Department get itself in such a legal quagmire?
Well, I mean, now people are starting to understand corruption there, because a lot of people understand what they're accusing and saying, how far does this corruption go here?
Okay.
And it's just attorney. But if you go down to it, and we know people can't read it, but you can verify for this here. I have it where it's the Judiciary Committee. Senator Orrin Hatch, he's on the Judiciary Committee, and he is also sitting on the Terrorism.
Now, was Orrin Hatch the chair? He was the chair.
But he's always been a senator on the Judiciary. Okay. At the time he's on the chair, and then he's just a member during this attorney scandal stuff going on. But, like I say, he's a former chairman, And then you got, but the thing of it is, you got John Ashcroft, Orrin Hatch, and our inspector were on the judiciary from the Republican side. John Ashcroft goes to be the Attorney General when this postal stuff comes down, the postal side. He's the Attorney General.
Well, Fred's postal thing is going on.
That's what we're saying. So we can this one.
John Ashcroft is the Attorney General at that time.
That hires the special assistant.
Yes.
And there's supposed to be a close relationship between Orrin Hatch and John Ashcroft. I mean, just for knowing each other and being on the bit and things like that.
For both being senators.
Now, at the time when they had this argument about Paul Warner, the U.S. attorney they tried to fire at one time, when they were firing a bunch of U.S. attorneys,
yes.
and Orrin Hatch said, yeah, they tried to fire Paul Warner.
Okay, so at the time when they were firing all these attorneys, one of the guys on the hit list was Paul Warner.
Right, and this is when he first took over, when Bush first took over.
Okay.
Well, Orrin Hatch wouldn't let it be done because they said, well, he was picked by Clinton. But what they're not saying is that Orrin Hatch picked him.
Okay, so Bill Clinton, when he was president, allowed the senators to pick, and even a Republican senator to pick because he was the senator from Utah, and this was for the U.S. attorney in that district
area.
That area. Okay.
So it's Paul Warner. Well, what happened is Kyle Sampson had been a staff member on the judiciary.
Okay.
Well,
he's a staff member of the Judiciary Committee.
And he's now the connection is going to be is that these attorneys we're talking about, or like Orrin Hatch, went to BYU Law School, which is a religious church school. Now we're just saying it, so just
BYU is a Mormon university.
Everybody knows he's does something like that, but this is where this comes in.
Yes.
So then Kyle Sampson goes down here to be chief of staff for the Attorney General Gonzalez.
Okay, so Kyle Sampson is a staff member on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Orrin Hatch is on that Judiciary Committee.
Over.
And so Kyle Sampson becomes the chief of staff.
Chief of staff
for Attorney General Gonzalez
later.
Okay.
Okay. But at the same time, when he goes down to be chief of staff, on the Judiciary comes John Tolman.
To replace Kyle Sampson,
or in that,
or wherever, the same sort of job.
Whatever they might get. Yes. So, but it's under Orrin Hatch because John Tolman is from Utah, BYU graduate in law.
Okay, so Orrin Hatch brings John Tolman in.
That's what you.
Or you assume, but we don't know that.
At the same time, when our inspector is having cancer, and the Patriot Act's going on, John Tolman is the one who inserts the U.S. Attorney exemption.
Now, Orrin Hatch was the chair. Our inspector became the chair when the Patriot Act was being written. And John Tolman, as a member of the Judiciary staff, inserted the U.S. Attorney exemption, which is what the whole deal is right now, about the Attorney General being able to hire and fire attorneys without the approval of the Congress.
So here you've got three people from BYU University.
Okay.
Law school.
Okay.
Orrin Hatch is their godfather, or you want to call it. Because Kyle Sampson wouldn't know this. Here's two of them went to the same law school. One of them's inserting it, and one of them's applying it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So that's a little bit of a stretch that they don't know of each other.
Okay.
But now...
So we assume they know each other. They went to the same law school. So they're involved in the Patriot Act.
Well, this is very unusual.
One writing it, one enforcing it.
This is circumventing Congress. This is the executive branch circumventing Congress.
Circumventing Congress, but Congress approved it.
Well,
right?
Yeah. See, so you understand what's going on here.
Okay.
Or a little.
They wish now
sinister group seems to be
now they wish
there.
They hadn't approved it.
Well, and then when this comes out, it's going to even get 10 times more worse.
Okay, so
because this hasn't even been brought out yet.
So we're tying in Fred's postal story into the attorney. The
Attorney General scandal.
Yes, and the federal attorneys being fired and the politics going on in there.
This has a whole new thing that nobody's. The one side is wanting to get them. It's going to be gravy, and the other side's not waiting for this rock to come falling down off the mountain.
Okay,
that's what it amounts to.
Yes.
Because then now John Tolman, from the time this has happened, because Paul Warner went to be a federal magistrate in Utah.
Okay, now Paul Warner
was the U.S. attorney.
Okay,
that they wanted to fire.
And what? Okay,
and he was the attorney with a special assistant.
Okay.
He was a local attorney.
Okay, he was the local attorney. The special assistant that worked on Fred's case was under Paul Warner.
No,
actually.
but Paul Warner, since it's in his area, his name will be on it for what's going on in his area most of the time.
Okay.
It's not all the time. The Justice Department don't have to have the U.S. Attorney on it. But a lot of times it's that cordial.
Okay, so Paul Warner was hired by Attorney General John Ashcroft because
Paul Warner was first hired by was first put in by Clinton, but it was Orrin Hatch. Paul Warner.
Oh yes, by Janet Reno actually.
Yeah, Janet Reno.
Okay, well, okay, fine. But Orrin Hatch asked it to happen, and one of the reasons he was on the hit list was because he was a Clinton appointee.
That's how screwed up they are.
Okay, even though he was put in by Orrin Hatch. Okay, all right.
So, and then the special assistant, which is a postal legal department lawyer, well, Paul Warner knows it.
He knows, yes.
Because both their names are on the heading of the paper.
Who's he know?
Paul Warner knows it on this postal lawsuit.
Yes.
Because both of them's names are on the heading of the paper.
And who's the other one?
Paul Warner and Kurt Lusty.
Kurt Lusty. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The special assistant
so Paul
hired by Ashcroft.
By Ashcroft. Okay. Fine. So Paul Warner is involved. His name's on the on the paper on the paperwork. Okay, so now he's replaced. He
goes to a magistrate.
He gets the job as a federal magistrate.
And John Tolman now is U.S. Attorney.
Okay.
This was, again, Kyle Sampson wanted the job. And there was a big friction between, because Orrin Hatch is in charge.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? So Kyle Sampson got kind of slapped by Orrin Hatch for trying to have John Tolman fired so that he could get the job.
Kyle Sampson tried to get John Tolman fired.
So he could be the local attorney, the attorney in Utah, U.S. attorney in Utah. So this all
okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
part.
That's all over.
I didn't know that part. So John Tolman gets Paul Warner's job as U.S. attorney in Utah, and Kyle Sampson wanted that job. And actually, it seems like Kyle Sampson's probably maybe even in a better position to get that job because he's the chief of staff. But
he's attorney.
But he is involved in the firing of the U.S. attorneys.
Yeah, he's the one that's trying to go this list. Remember, he's the one that's had to testify and all. Orrin Hatch is talking about how good he done. Orrin Hatch is the only one that stood for him because Kyle Sampson's actually Orrin Hatch's man.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Okay. Paul Warner's his man, John Tolman's his man, and Kyle Sampson's his man.
Okay.
Now, nothing goes on that Orrin Hatch doesn't know about.
Now, is Kyle Sampson involved in the decisions of firing the U.S. attorneys?
Yes. That's why he's resigned. He's already resigned.
He's resigned. Now, John Tolman got Paul Warner's job.
And he's the one that did the Patriot Act exemption. He's the one that wrote it up and stuck it in
but
there.
Paul Warner wasn't fired.
I mean John Tolman. Well,
okay, but Paul Warner wasn't fired. He got a promotion.
No. Yeah, but Paul Warner's dirty because he's tied up to this special assistant that was a legal department. They all know what the rules are on propriety and ethics and things like that.
Okay, except that the government's so big that maybe he doesn't know what's going on here at all.
His name's on the paper.
Okay.
You put your name on it.
Okay.
Buck stops somewhere.
Okay.
And if you're this attorney, this is what gets me is all these attorneys with all this law school and stuff like that, and they don't know the fundamentals. I mean, my basics comes from 5th grade civics and when we took American history. You know what I'm saying? And yet these people have got all this background and they're claiming they have no clue what's going on.
What's funny about this is that we've all become so jaded, I think, by the fact is like, well, of course, there are a bunch of politicians and attorneys. Of course all this stuff's going on, right? I mean, it's sort of...
Well, there's what we call, and we as people understand it, just do us right out here. What goes on up there, I guess, just goes on. So saying what they don't know won't hurt them. But they're coming down now and affecting us all down here in our everyday life. They're going in and firing Republican attorneys that were picked by their senators because they wouldn't prosecute or they were doing the law wrong. There's not really that much difference between the independent, the everyday Democrat, and Republican. I found that out for sure when I rode across the country because when I was in Kansas the first time in 2000, I'm at the Colorado border. It's a drought going on through there. It's nothing but fun. I'm saying, do I really want to go in there or do I want to go back to Denver? And this is 2000, not 2001 and 9/11, the second
And
round.
you're riding your bike across
I did
the
it twice.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, they asked me, I'm from North Carolina. North Carolina has got this nutcase called Jesse Helms, but otherwise it's known as a Democrat. I mean, it was Sam Ervin that prosecuted the judiciary. He's chairman of the judiciary. That's funny, I'm charged with all these chairmen of the judiciary. I'm just, because I was under Sam Ervin with lawyers and stuff and the Watergate thing. I was just getting fed information on what's happening. I didn't actually work it. But because I was close with certain members of the bar and things, when he'd come home on the weekend from D.C., they'd go up there and talk about what was really going on.
Okay, now Fred's funny.
That's a different.
Fred's funny this way. He's a name dropper. I mean, it's sort of like he comes very close to all kinds of different people in your life. You've kind of been really, it's sort of Forrest Gumpish in your.
Well, sort of that movie Little Big Man. I saw that one time and I thought, God, Lee, that was in 18-something. And I'm seeing it now. It seems like it's my life now, you know. That was back when that movie came out.
It's surprising how you're in certain places at certain times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think somebody's got it in for me.
Okay.
I just wanted
and this whole coincidence of being in certain places at a certain time really comes up in your Boffo case.
Oh.
You keep popping up
That'd
in
be the next
exactly the
hour.
right place at the right time in a whole bunch of different situations. And we'll get to
No.
that another time.
Right. It's not that I pop up. It's that they attack me in some way or another. And I'm not bothering them. I'm just a crippled old man. Why are they bothering me? So if they're bothering me, who else are they doing this to? You see, that's where the point really gets to. And if they've come so down off the ladder that who they got to attack is some crippled, disabled person, then, and these people are in positions of leadership, my goodness, what's happened to our country? So get off. I mean, we went there too much.
Okay. Now this is complicated,
Okay,
so
yeah.
we need to stay on the story.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it seems like we've got this crazy quilt of all these different characters, all with different interrelations,
With corruption just all over.
and corruption all over the place, and we're seeing this being played out on the grand scale.
Yeah.
Of the U.S. attorney firings, and how does this tie into what we're talking about?
Well, every time you look at everything, because this is huge, these cross departments.
Yes.
And then over here, you can see that everything's tied in. Two cases now, extraordinary cases that the only common denominator is Orrin Hatch.
Okay.
He's the only one that, he's appointed all these people. I mean, you know, if you're my boss man, you hire me, I'm going to look after you. I'm sure not going to be going around your back stabbing you and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So Orrin Hatch is kind of like their boss man. And how we do it's a pecking order. I'm not trying to say it's wrong. But you're supposed to know when something's too far. You know, there's a gray area, then there's a line that's completely black. And once you step over in that black area, I mean, that's like bar association lawyers. There's a gray area, they might slap your hand, they might do this, that, and other, and there's a little gray area law, and bar looking after the lawyers and things like that. But boy, when they cross that line, you see a lawyer go to the penitentiary a lot of times.
Okay.
Because they violated the trust of the client, they violated the trust of the citizen.
Okay. So, but Orrin Hatch is, I mean, maybe he's the kingmaker up there in this world of U.S. attorneys, but maybe after that's done, he's off to other things. I mean, he's a busy man. He's a United States Senator.
We're going to get down here to the Buffo case next one. And this is going to be like 3 strikes, you're out.
Okay.
But we're just letting everybody out there know it's coming.
But you know, I'm not a big Orrin Hatch fan, but I also see that it's his job to appoint these different people,
Well,
and I'm sure he's going to pick his friends or people he knows or people that have been suggested, or in this case, people that he's worked with in the Judiciary Committee to become the chief of staff for the Attorney General or to become a U.S. attorney. It's all a club, and we all understand that.
Well, but this is where it kind of changes a little bit. When I first, in the early 70s, and I got tied in with what you call CIA operatives, because I was not a CIA bona fide agent like that, but if you were, and I was a guy, sometimes you came to, kind of like a Mission Impossible, you had your different people you could get to for different things, and I slowly, because of the way I kept my mouth shut and whatever was going on, so the first time I was working with a guy through somebody else, said, I know a guy can... In fact, I was just a driver, wheelman. That's all I was for.
Wheelman for the Mission Impossible team.
Something like that. But it was just the one guy, I think he was in there doing stuff, because they'll operate inside the border.
Okay.
Whatever. And so I was sitting there, because the guy kind of let me know what kind of person I was actually involved with, you know, that put us together. And so I was in a motel room a couple of nights later, and I'm sitting there, and I guess everybody else was running their mouth, what can I do, and I'm not, because I don't know what I really like this or not, because I don't know nothing about it. You know, so I asked him, I said, if
all this
I
cloak
decide,
and dagger stuff.
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
yeah,
sure
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're really
Well, I won't go there
interested
at
in
all.
dealing with
Yeah,
it. Okay.
and
All right.
so I said, what is it if I decide,
To get involved.
let myself keep getting involved, doing things stuff? I said, is there any advice that you could give me? And they later told me that, as far as people always trying to talk around or something, and they cut you off. See, they watch you. If you handle yourself wrong 1 minute, you're through. You understand? This is how serious it is. That's why this out, and I understand this outing of a CIA agent, and to these other people, it's real, real serious. You know what I'm saying? That's how weak things are, because these people should be knocked off and outed by the CIA themselves or the people sent it. They don't put up with that crap. I don't know what's happened to them since, who knows, since the past. I'm just saying that's a real world out there, and these people put their life on it. You know, good, bad, ugly.
Okay, what was the advice?
So, well, it said, there's two. He gave me two things. He said, if you're going to do the job, do it right. And I'll get back to what that meant more later. Otherwise, if you have to do something, you can't get caught. If you get caught, you're going down. They're going to disavow you. That's true and stuff like that. But if you're not going to get caught, that means you're going to have to kill somebody. So if you value life and things like that, you spend the extra time to make sure that that's not going to happen. You have not just one way in, one way out. You have 4 or 5 ways out. So if you do run into something, instead of you having to kill them because you can't be recognized or identified, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's what that meant. And since we're doing it for the country, we're not supposed to be killing citizens. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So, and then, I mean, what are they turning you into? Or what are you allowing yourself to be turned into? I mean, if you knock somebody off, they're threatening the country. You see? And that kind of thing. So the other thing is that he said, how was it? It says, gosh, I get, that a coincidence, because once you're in that area, other people recognize things. They can tell who you're talking with or not talking with, how people accept you just by letting you be in the neighborhood with them. You know what I mean? And so there'll be other people approach you about different things and stuff. And you never know when it's sinister or blabbermouth stuff and things. So it was that a coincidence is not a coincidence. Remember, a coincidence might not be a coincidence. That you just happen to run into somebody that happens to be wanting to talk to you, and somehow now they're connected to something you might be doing. And two coincidences are not a coincidence. In the world of that, there's no such thing as two coincidences.
Okay.
And for me, there's no such thing. And now we're going to get to the third and fourth one, and the other ones. But then I was wanting to.
Okay. So talk about this. We've about 10 minutes or so.
We can go over this part right quick.
Okay. So, what we're doing here is we've got these flimsy pieces of paper here, and we're doing it on community access television, and it's not really costing anything. What's your point here?
Well, what's going on here is what you have in here. You got to look at it.
Yes.
Is where when they outed Valerie Plame.
Yes.
There's a congressional thing for a special prosecutor.
Yes.
Unlimited funds.
Yes.
And as they started on one thing, they ended up with a prosecution for lying of Scooter Liddy. And then other people on the jury stating there's more going on here. But that wasn't what we handled. But what we're talking about, what I've been able to do with the help of a few people, is this is just as big. But yet he had law school, he'd been a U.S. attorney, they gave him unlimited funds, he had a network of people, they hired investigators, they gave him money for office staff, cars, plane tickets, train tickets, food accounts, business expenses, business machines, secretaries. So when you put the
Patrick Fitzgerald had all the resources of the entire nation really behind him, unlimited funds,
credibility
to try to figure out what happened in the Valerie Plame situation.
And you're getting the same thing
here with Fred. It's free.
Gonzo.
Gonzo's doing it for free, and I guess what that brings up is you have spent a lot of time digging into this.
Well,
you know, this all sounds a little crazy, and it's complicated, and it's hard to put the pieces together or tie the strings together on all this, and I think it might be difficult for some people to accept some of those strings actually do tie together.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is your point about coincidence, is right now it seems like, okay, there's an element of coincidence, and you're saying, well, yeah, but after
somebody had to force
so many coincidences, it's not a coincidence.
And somebody had to force these coincidences.
There is actually is a web going on there, and you keep touching different parts of it, but it actually is.
When you touch the web, the whole thing jiggles.
Yes, so that there actually is something there that there, you know, and what. Maybe what we're just touching on here is this web of it's almost inherent corruption.
Yeah,
it seems like it's not like it's a purposeful conspiracy. It's just this is such the way things work, and they don't want us to know that that's how messed up it is all the time. And
well,
and then you get some guy like Fred comes in and starts pushing all kinds of buttons,
getting in the middle of it,
and we don't need Fred here doing that.
Because the U.S. attorney thing is where nobody has a right to vote. If they're going to prosecute people, if this attorney general is going to be doing things that act where people can't, as they've come out with, they've kept people from going to the polls, or they're doing this thing to say that they don't qualify or something. And it turns out they really did. They just did this to mess up the voting count. And I'll go a little bit further. I've worked with Cosa Nostra and Gambling in Vegas and Book. You understand what I'm saying? And there's poker machines, and I've worked with people that know everything about hacking. I worked in theory. I'm not the one who knows all this stuff about computers, but I did work in theory back in the middle 80s, and so I know what they can do and not do, as well as touching base and stuff. I know when they started putting these vote machines in that they can control those vote machines. What's happened this past election was, one, they went in and they as they call it, disenfranchised. I'm saying they just knocked off they knocked off a percentage of people that they knew would vote Independent or Democrat. They went in and took a slice of them, hoping nobody knows. So if it's going to be like a $4,000 or $5,000, vote, not dollar, but $4,000 or $5,000 vote difference, or $2,000, well, they went in and got $1,500 this way and things like that. Then if they've got that machine also to where it would just take 1% of the Democrat and throw it to the Republican, they've got it. What's happened, and these Democrats know it, they can't prove it. You can see how it's going. What's happened this last election, it wasn't that where they won by a couple thousand votes, they actually might have won by 5 or 6 or 10,000. And where one of them did win by 1,000 or 2,000 votes, they should have lost by 1,000. It's a lot bigger swap on the citizens out here have had enough, and they see the Tsunami wave. That was the first Tsunami wave, was 2006, and they see in the second one, which is larger, coming. And whatever it is, my thing is they're either going to start another war, and holler and scream like they did to get us into this first one. Because our country's in trouble. Because
when you have Fred, you're bouncing up against it, and that's just one little guy, and you're saying this is a big organism that needs to perpetuate and survive, and it will do whatever it takes to do that
against us,
including whatever
they're doing it to Republicans.
Gymnastics are going through just
they're
to
doing
deal
it to
with
Republicans,
and they're dealing to the Republicans. Yes, that seems really odd.
Yeah, well,
but
there's more to it.
Okay, from the surface it seems odd.
Well, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so now we've got a couple more of these shows that start.
Well, while we're doing our research,
you tell me what I've got here.
All right, this is the book on federal.
This is Moore's federal practice.
And it says, what does it say?
The Federal Law of Attorney Conduct.
And the two professors and other professors do it are like the primo, top of the thing, no better. Boston College, Harvard University, doing it. That it's the breakdown of all the federal misconduct, which when you're looking at how this could be known, not known, not in this book, it's not. You know what I mean?
So
when you
this is the Federal Law of Attorney Conduct, and what you're saying is that this is the rule book by which you have to perform as a federal attorney.
All the cases and decisions.
And they're not going by the book. Okay.
They're writing on.
I think
not only the book, but the statutes of the codes the Justice Department statutes, the FBI stuff. So we can't get anything the FBI to do out there because they're all tied into the same thing. We're not going to investigate because we have to investigate. That's like they're saying we'd have to investigate ourselves. So they're not going to investigate nothing out there. So it's,
and the same situation you have with the post offices. They're not. They're investigating themselves, and therefore, and they refuse to do so.
The FBI already knows about this stuff. They knew about it before it started hitting the paper. They're attorneys too, most of the time.
You've got. I think if we're going to go into the Buffo story next time, there's all kinds of this going on where the different law enforcement knows part of the story. They want to hold on to it. The other side doesn't know the other part of the story. They want to hold on to their side of it. They're trying to each be heroes. The whole story isn't coming together. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy where if only they got together for a moment, they'd understand what the whole picture was.
This stuff they're arguing about that is just totally dysfunctional, if you ever, or worse, because I'm saying, well, you're an FBI agent, you're an SEC agent, and you're this kind of agent, or within the federal departments or agencies of breakdown. I said, but you work for us. I mean, when you're working as an FBI agent, you're working for the SEC as a citizen. You know what I'm saying? So where do you get that y'all can't talk to each other?
I really want. We only got a minute left, and 30 seconds left. And I really want to emphasize this is what I love about this, Fred, is that it's really important that we all remember that we the people created this government. It belongs to us. It's not something else. It's supposed to work for us. If it's not working for us, then it's not working anymore. And we have to do something about it.
And the world's seeing it. So why are we
doing
military adventures?
You might think Fred's a kook or something, but he's right on because of what he's passionately pursuing here and doing a lot of hard work on his own to show that it's really what we all should be doing is eternal vigilance in protecting our rights and protecting our freedoms from the government, and that this government was designed to enable us to do that, and that's why we designed it this way, and we need to always be doing this. So thanks, Fred, and we'll be back for another episode.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
Thanks.
I think we did all right.